Good morning, everyone. This is James, the Ghost That Killed Put 'em on the Glass podcast. And today's show is with Joel from REVV ADAS. He has a lot of great information for everybody. So sit back, relax, enjoy the show, and have a great day. Thanks for bearing with me with my studio reorganization. I'm trying to figure things out. I like the old setup, but I didn't jive with it 100%. So thanks for bearing with the whole, got my camera working this time. So it's kind of a different angle and everything. But I'm James, the Ghost Set Killer, and this is Put 'em on the Glass podcast. And we have special guests today, as always. They are always special. But go ahead and let's introduce our co-host and then our guest.
Damon Bedno back at you.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm Joel Adcock. Work for REV ADAS. I'm the Director of Partnerships, and just thanks for having me on the podcast this morning.
Okay, we all see the REV ADAS Facebook posts, in all the groups and social media, but I honestly don't think a lot of the people scrolling fully grasp because you offer webinars and all kinds of things, but what is REV ADAS?
Great question. So at its core and what it's designed to do is, ADAS technology continues to evolve and enhance from the vehicle manufacturers, and there's still a large group of repairs out there that maybe are a bit behind the eight ball, understanding when calibrations are necessary. Typically it's been either through experience because they've got a tech that's done ADAS in the past, or they've relied on information from like a pre-scan or lights on the dashboard or codes or things like that. But what typically is found is that majority of calibrations are uncovered or referenced back to OEM service information, maybe just even from like simple R&Is or repairs like an alignment. So effectively what REV does is helps shorten that time of research to understand when calibrations are required based on OEM service information. Could be like R&Ing a bumper or doing a four-wheel alignment or replacing glass on a windshield. So we work typically with independent repair shops, some regional MSOs, sublet, calibration companies, or do diagnostics or programming, or they provide services to repair shops. So REV, again, based on what repairs are being done to the vehicle, we can help identify pretty quickly what calibrations are necessary, provide documentation substantiating why they need to be done, and then we've got a full suite of like different tools and resources that shops can use to help kind of manage the entire process from really the start all the way through like invoicing.
So it's the light in the cave of navigating ADAS and what needs done, but you're not getting an automated person, right? You're getting someone you can actually talk to. You're going to get a technician or somebody. You're not going to get like a please hold and it comes on and it just reads what the screen says back to you that you're looking at.
Right. So it's full support as well. So if you've got questions on, hey, I'm trying to understand like what's in this report, or can we get some further clarification on documentation? We've got a team of specialists at REV that can help sort of, pardon the pun, but decode a little bit of the information in a report. And again, really the reports that we provide are as good as the inputs from the estimate themselves. So it's understanding like different line items from a repair estimate from a CCC or Mitchell, or even from manual inputs. So it's critical that it's accurate to begin with, but then obviously from what we can provide through the report itself, and then obviously from any type of post-report support, if that makes any sense. We've got a team of ADAS specialists that are constantly looking at the repair information from the OEMs. That information gets updated continuously, service bulletins, position statements. There was a new position statement recently updated from Honda. I don't know if you guys saw that. It's talking about the requirements of using OEM scan tools. And
was that Honda or Hyundai?
Both.
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 Oh, both. Okay.
Yeah, I've seen Hyundai has one too. That's one of the things I had in my notes was that whole the word required, right, is finally coming into effect, and when these things are required rather than recommended.
Yep. So yeah, Hyundai, and then American Honda, which encompasses Honda and Acura. They just released a new position statement I saw just recently, like a week or two ago. So, we're going to go back through, obviously, we're going to update our files on the back end and make sure we're pointing to, as we say, like sort of the best source of truth of information so that our customers know that with the confidence that they've got the right information so that they can do what they need to do in terms of actually doing the calibrations or subletting out if they do that, and then from documentation side, substantiating why it needs to be done and try to mitigate or minimize any sort of pushback potentially on getting reimbursed from insurance companies.
Yeah, that's a big one. If you don't have that piece of paper that says that, there's no fault codes on the dash, so we don't need to calibrate it. And it's like, well, you haven't performed enough ignition cycles to throw any lights on the dash, let alone to say that it doesn't need it. And then they go down the road, then all of a sudden all these lights come on, and it's like, well, insurance company won't pay for it. Well, with the right documentation, they absolutely will. They have no choice, to pay it with the right documentation. And I could see that being very, very useful for shops on both body shop and auto glass shop sides, getting paid and reimbursed and paid fairly for what work you perform. So that's a good service. I didn't realize that's what it encompassed. You know what I mean? Because of, we see the webinars, but it's just not quite clear in the advertisement what it is that you're actually getting.
And that's by design. I mean, we're my role is not necessarily to stand on the Rev sales soapbox, so to speak. I mean, it's more, thought leadership, educational based. Let's recognize that we can all work together. There are enough cars right now, enough vehicles out there that need ADAS calibrations that aren't getting them, that if we all do things correctly and we prop each other up and create a positive influence and through community and things like that, that we can all win, right? There's a lot of things that we can feel good about doing in terms of mitigating liability, ensuring safety, and yeah, there is a revenue opportunity there if you're doing calibrations. And so we don't necessarily just use like the webinars or our podcast or anything like that to talk too much in depth about what Rev can do. I mean, we leave that up to really our marketing and our sales folks to talk through those things if people are interested, because I'm not an expert on exactly how the platform works entirely, because it's more than just doing ADAS identification. But we appreciate you guys tuning in and listening, and obviously having some curiosity about how it works. And it is a great tool and utility for understanding what needs to be done that ensures safety, and then from a documentation standpoint, because there's a lot of technicians that the example would be like a Subaru that's equipped with eyesight and they've got to replace a windshield. They know they have to recalibrate it, but what documentation are you presenting to either the consumer or the insurance company that substantiate why it needs to be done? Do you have access to that? Do you have access to Subaru information, or through a platform like Rev, which for really a couple of dollars can help guarantee, like you said, getting that reimbursement without any kind of pushback, basically, at that point.
Yeah. So for our listeners who don't know, what is your podcast, so they can tune in and they can further their knowledge base? I mean, it sounds like it's very educational, and they can further their knowledge base on these subjects. What's that podcast?
So the podcast is the ADAS Empowered Podcast. You can find it on your major podcast channels between Spotify, Apple, Amazon. We've got a YouTube channel that we post. If you search for Rev or Rev ADAS, it's REVV ADAS. You'll be able to subscribe to our channel on YouTube. We bring in guests that have got experience within the ADAS industry. That a couple of the guests that we've had on so far, really sort of that end of line equipment that they distribute to the OEMs. So as well as experience building and building a lot of the technology for the OEMs, for the radars and for the cameras, and understanding what that life cycle typically looks like. We also do a monthly webinar that we host through our community that we've got well over 1,000 members now that are a part of the community, and that's I'll have to share the link with you guys afterwards. Off the top of my head, I can't remember the exact address, but it's the ADAS Empowered Community. And again, it's free to join, great place to go hang out with peers, talk shop of ADAS, ask questions. Hey, I've got this code. What does this mean? Hey, I'm getting this field calibration. We do polls. We do industry articles like that Honda position statement. We posted that, and Damon, you were talking about that white paper from Essential Technologies. There's another person that posted something on that. So it's a great place to go, because the reason we developed that too was we see a lot of technicians or folks that are in the industry asking questions on like Facebook or social media channels, and they're looking for help, they're looking for a resource, and sometimes their questions may be that they're just getting started and they don't know what they don't know, and they're getting sort of beat up over the head, which is unfortunate, to them. So we want to give them sort of a safe haven, if you will, to go join the community. And again, we do a lot of like I said, webinars on just different topics that we see, and I try to blend our topics to ADAS 101 all the way up to folks that have been in the industry for a long time, and ways of just leveraging my experience within the industry over the last 15 years, and trying to help out and again be a resource for them to continue to learn and advance, whether they're brand new or whether they've been around the block for quite a while.
Do you guys work with the tool manufacturers alongside of the automobile manufacturers in any way?
The OEMs are sort of a tough code to crack, if you will. We've tried to work with them directly. Not to say that it's necessarily been a negative experience, but it just hasn't really gone anywhere at this particular point. We've worked with different equipment manufacturers that have maybe a little bit closer tie to the OEMs to really just to like understand the data and the information, so that again, like what we're trying to channel is accurate information, so that if you're a car side and you're trying to understand not only what is this car equipped with for ADAS features and functionality, but based on service and repairs, what do we actually need to do to it? What's required from ADAS or steering angle sensors or seat weight sensors or airbag or whatever, right? So same idea, Damon, as far as like getting direct access to the OEMs.
Yeah.
If we could just pull your guys' data versus going through an aggregator like an ALLDATA or Repair Logic, because we're unfortunately at the mercy of like when they update their profiles and systems on that OEM information. So it's not to say that we haven't tried. It just hasn't been necessarily something that's been very successful for us at this particular point. But if we could get to that point of sort of breaching that threshold with them, then that opens up a lot of opportunities for us to like really make sure we've got accurate information and data on vehicle data. So
yeah, we where I'm currently employed, as you know, Joel, we were trying you guys out, and the powers that be made a decision to go elsewhere. But I think that just the short time that we were using the REV system, it opened the eyes of, because we have 3 body shops that are part of our corporation, and they saw the revenue. You had mentioned revenue. They saw the revenue that the work we were doing was bringing in, and they were like, yeah, right? Like, it's money. They get paid off of their total gross, whatever they write in a month. So, and I think that it also helped them understand the importance of it, and see that, getting the car back to the customer the way that it should be, and all the safety features are functioning as they should be, that it's important. I think, like you said, a lot of people don't understand the importance and what the purpose of those safety features are.
yeah, people love like their bells and whistles, as they call it. They love their blind spots, they love their backup cameras, they love the adaptive cruise controls, because a lot of us are, unfortunately, we're distracted, right? We've got technology in our cars that distracts us. We've got maybe passenger, exactly, we've got kids, and there are in my neighborhood now, the prevalence of these kids on motorized scooters.
Yeah.
And they're not zipping down the sidewalk. They're zipping down the road at 20, 25 miles an hour, and they're not necessarily easy to see. So it's easy. And as much as the technology has helped mitigate, I think, some accidents, people still are having accidents. But at the same time, they love the fact that they can engage their adaptive cruise control at 75 miles an hour, and it will maybe react to a vehicle in front of them. Or as they change lanes, they can see if there's something in their blind spot, or as they back up, or what have you, right? Or the steering wheel starts to shake a little bit as they start to creep over a center line or the sideline. Now, when you turn that technology off, after repairs and the customer gets back in the car and it's expecting it to work the way it did before their accident, the adaptive cruise isn't working. They start to encroach on a vehicle and they're like, what's going on? And they start to panic. Or the blind spot indicators are turned off because whoever was working on the vehicle arbitrarily did or by accident or what have you. And I can speak from experience that I've taken my vehicle, my previous vehicle, which is a 2019 VW Atlas, loaded with ADAS, minor damage to it, took it to a local shop that I know does ADAS calibrations because I helped get them set up with my previous company to do sublet. And the experience was interesting. I'm like, I knew they had to do the front radar because they had to R&I the front bumper basically to finish the door and blend into the fender. I know from experience how that all works. They never called us to come out to do the calibration. And I called the shop and I said, hey, look, I'm just kind of curious. He's like, oh, we just lowered the front bumper to mask around. And I said, okay, that's fine. I understand. But what's interesting is the day I go pick up my vehicle, there is a Precision Diagnostics van, my previous company, which provides sublet services, in the parking lot doing calibrations on their vehicle. And I get back in my car. I'm a little heated at this particular point. And sure enough, my adaptive cruise is turned off. My blind spots are turned off. I'm driving down the road and I'm like, what is going on here? So, I mean, even when we anticipate shops that do things correctly, do they become complacent? Do they always do it 100% right every single time? In my experience, that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah, talking on what you're talking about, I just had my 17 Subaru Outback. Was in a front end collision. My daughter turned into somebody, but they had to replace the hood, the fender, the bumper cover, and a few things. And I talked to the adjuster multiple times, talked to the body shop. I said, I don't care. Unless they're willing to put it in writing, they have to calibrate that eyesight. Okay? So then they call me. I said I wanted a four-wheel alignment too. But so they call me, and they're like, your car's done. I said, well, who did the calibration? Well, nobody. This well-known large entity that everybody knows about, insurance company, was like, oh, it doesn't need it. Their adjuster was like, oh, it doesn't need it. I said, are they willing to put it in writing? And the body shop was like, no, they didn't say that. They said it's just not needed and they weren't going to pay for it. I said, well, I'll tell you what, I do calibrations. If they're not willing to do it, then, let me talk to them and I'll see what I can figure out. And they were like, well, there's no lights on the dash, nothing. We drove it, test drove it, everything's functioning. The day I go to pick it up, the body shop manager walks out and he's like, hey, we just test drove that again. Every light's on the dash. The eyesight's disabled. The knock sensor needs replaced. The battery is dropping voltage. Like all kinds of stuff was going on. And I was like, okay. And I was like, are you going to replace or fix any of that? He was like, well, can you calibrate it? I was like, well, I mean, I can, but I also have Subaru's position statement that defines what a crash is and that they have to do the eyesight calibration. And I was like, so they have to pay for it. You know what I mean? So anyways, long story short, they went and had somebody else come out and calibrate it. Perfectly fine. It works great. I'm happy with it. You know what I mean? But it was like, just because it was my vehicle and I know how to calibrate and I have all the equipment to calibrate means that I should do it for free. You see what I mean? It means because it's my car, I should do it. No. You couldn't expect somebody else. So they did the pre-scan, had to submit a bunch of paperwork to this company, and then I believe they paid for it. Last I heard, I don't know for a fact they did pay for it, but it's done. And I made sure that it was done. But they would refuse to do a four-wheel alignment. Refused. And I was like, well, it hit right on that tire, right on that driver's side tire on the front fender. It hit right there. And I went and I did pay for the alignment myself, and it was out of line. So, which, then we had to recalibrate the eyesight because we did an alignment on it. You see what I mean? Like, it's all kinds of just cascading because people are saying, no, we don't have to do that. We're not going to pay for that. So we're not going to do that. And it's like, it has to be done. And there's You know what I mean? Like I don't know. It was very frustrating. I see where you're coming from, because it's like, I just want my car back, but I want it right.
Yeah.
I think the premise of them saying that they're not going to pay for it and that you don't have the proper documentation, they just rely that the people in the body shop aren't going to take the time to find that documentation to be a James Chapman. Well, here's the position statement, and this is what it says, right? Like, but you know that you're like their worst customer, James, right? Like you walk
Yeah.
in with the position statement and listen, mother effers, I know what I'm talking about. Like,
Oh, I
you
had
know,
a pre-scan from when I bought
yeah,
the vehicle, because I diagnostic scanned when I bought the vehicle. So I had that I provided them. And then I just did spark plugs in it. So then I had the pre-scan and post-scan after doing which was a month before. So I was like, listen, here's proof that there was nothing wrong. And then they had their pre-scan when it came into the body shop with no codes or nothing like that. I was like, so here's proof that, there was nothing wrong pre-existing.
Yeah.
and, that where I worked before, we were a company that did calibrations within a corporation for a big body shop chain. And man, what an eye opener, all the information we got or they gave us. You like a Honda, right? It talks about anything that there's structural damage, everything should technically be calibrated. And you tell people that and they're like, no, it's just a little dent, right? But here's the paperwork. Here's where it says, Honda says, structural damage. Here's what structural damage is. You do forward, you do lane departure, you do blind spots, you do your all sensor, and you do your seat weight sensor. Like, the seat weight sensor is the other thing that a lot of people miss, right? And that's
Tons.
getting the car back to safety, to where it should be safety, but it's also revenue, right? So
That's exactly
I
it.
think you do it for the revenue, but ethically you should do it because it's the right thing to do.
I agree. I think, that's I use the quote of like Tiger Woods. He wanted to win golf tournaments because he was competitive and he wanted to win golf tournaments, and the financial reward was just an added bonus to everything he did as far as hard work. And I think it's the same mentality here. And even like where I'm at now and in companies I've worked for in the past, it's like if you do things correctly, you do things right, you provide a great customer experience, you warranty any work that you do, you acknowledge the fact that, all right, we're not going to be 100% accurate every single time. Nobody is. It's unfortunately the case. And if they say otherwise, then they're foolish and they're telling a story that's not correct. But the ability to add a little bit of revenue to maybe 6 out of 10 cars coming through your shop, whether that's just through scanning and or calibrations, through a seat weight calibration, a seat sensor, a steering angle sensor, what have you. Now you don't have to necessarily focus on just bringing in additional cars or more cars, because if your hourly threshold every 2 weeks is 160 hours or whatever it is at your shop, you can look at it and redefine a little bit the formula, because if you can add $200, $300, $400 on maybe every car, and that's a conservative number, I think. You don't have to necessarily bring in more cars. Then you don't have to worry about making considerations for we've got to bring in more cars this month or volume is down. It's like, well, take a little bit of extra time, review the position statements, because like in REV, and that's one click. You're in the report. It's going to give you the position statement. We've got them for every vehicle manufacturer. I mean,
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
So it's like, as I say, it's like we give you all the resources and information, and that whether you're using REV or a different platform, that information is readily available on just about every single car that a shop's going to fix. Now it's a matter of what do you do with that information? Can you do things in house? Do you have equipment to do it? Do you have a verifiable or bona fide relationship with a sublet company that can come in, pick the car up, do whatever they need to do, or you've got a relationship with a dealership group that's gives you a great value and service as well. It's a great opportunity, like you say, Damon, to drive a little bit of revenue. But at the two main things I think a lot of shop owners feel good about is putting their head on their pillow at night knowing they did everything correctly, and they're mitigating a bit of that concern about liability, because is it only a matter of time before something happens like the John Eagle case? I hope not. I hope we don't have to get to that point. But
Yeah.
like we were talking about before we started here with the AEB mandate coming down in 2029. That's going to be every vehicle equipped or built at that particular point is going to be equipped with automatic emergency braking. It's like backup cameras from 2018 and on. You don't think
It's
ADAS in your shop now, it's going to be.
it's anything with GVW under 10,000 pounds, right? So even
Okay.
trucks, everything, it's gonna be standard equipment.
Yep. Yep.
But I
So it'll
wanted to
fall
digress.
within our four federal motor vehicle safety standards then.
Yeah, it's 127. Yeah,
127.
yeah.
FMVSS 127. Yeah. Yeah.
I wanted to digress real quick. You had talked about adding that little bit of money to every car. All you have to do is a pre and post scan, and you can add $200 to every job just by doing that. I don't know if people don't realize you can bill for that, but just doing that alone, and you do 400 cars a day or a month, if you do the math, right?
Yeah. Even, a shop doing 50, 60 cars a month, 70 cars a month. Pre and post everything. 2010 and newer. Pre and post it. There's, you know,
Yeah, I don't see why auto glass shops aren't doing that. Like just as a courtesy, pre and post whether it has ADAS or not.
yeah.
I think that's where a lot of auto glass shops fall short is they use a sublet company or their technicians don't scan before doing the job.
Yep.
There was one, my brother knows a guy, and he's like, hey, they did the windshield, and I drove my truck for a couple days, those key cycles, and all the dash lit up. So he sent me all the codes, and I looked them up on all data. And the first code that was pre-scan showed that it's a Dodge Ram pickup. There's an issue with the bracket, so the bracket has to be replaced. So it puts the camera at the wrong pitch. Well, then they did the calibration, and then it introduced, hey, there's a problem, and we're not going to calibrate. So now he's got a list of codes where, like Brandon Miller always talks, he has his acronym for when it's a hard stop, whenever you're doing a calibration. And this would have fallen under it because it was under the ADAS. It was under that particular module in the vehicle. So they should have been like, hey, unfortunately, you're going to need to take this to the dealer and get this fixed before he even did the job. Because whenever you put an aftermarket glass, we all know you take it to the dealer and they're going to be like, sorry, this is aftermarket glass. Guess what? It's not our problem. So
Yeah.
you just open up so many cans of worms that it's like people say, oh, then I'm just not going to do calibrations. Okay. Or I'm just not going to do the job. So it's like you're kind of taking food out of your own mouth despite yourself.
Yep.
Educate yourself, right? Educating is empowering.
Yep.
And that can be said.
Absolutely.
That could be said for yourself,
Yep.
for your customer, right? Like if you can educate your customer, then you empower them to make a good decision, a conscious decision. If you can explain to them the procedures and the processes, why you do it, why you don't do that calibration mobile, why you have them come in shop and do it, and they can understand that, then you're allowing them to make the decision that's in their best interest.
I agree. Yeah. Yeah. It's have the conversation early with the consumer, whether it's cash pay or an insurance job. And I even encourage, like on our webinars, if you're talking to the vehicle owner about what you're going to do to the car to fix it, right? Just as a blanket statement. And that vehicle, because of experience, whatever, you've done your scan already, or you've got a report from a platform like a REVV that it shows it's got ADAS on it. Have them start talking about what do you like about this car in terms of safety? Like, do you use the adaptive cruise? What do you use in this car that you like about it in terms of safety? And you have them start talking about it, and now they're engaged in it.
Engaging them.
Totally makes a different conversation for them.
Or you walk out, and they should be they're looking at the car, taking the pictures. Oh, hey, I noticed your car has blind spot monitors.
Mm-hmm.
The repairs are on that left rear corner. This is what's going to have to happen. This is what we're going to need to do. Like, if you can kind of like dumb it down for them, because they don't like, what are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know what the Auto Glass Safety Council is. How does that affect me? Or I don't know what this is or that is. Like, all I know is if my car beeps when there's a car behind me.
Yeah.
Beeps
Across
or does
the center
something,
line,
yeah.
It starts to shimmy, and a thing comes
Yeah.
up on the dash. Yeah.
Yeah, like in Ford, you'll have a customer, you'll do the lane departure, and oh my God, my steering wheel's vibrating. Something's wrong with my car. No, it's because we did the calibration and it probably reset it, and you had that off, and that's the
Yep.
way it comes. So you're just going to need to go in and turn that back off. Oh no, there's something wrong with my car. No, there's not.
No,
It's just
there's
what
not.
happens.
Yeah.
It's just what
I had
happens when you do that.
I had a lady call me once because she was like, now her car was too sensitive. It never used to warn her until she was pretty far over the line, and now it's like soon as she crosses over the line, it warns her. I said, "Did you have it off before?" She was like, "No, it just it allowed." I was like, "Why do you want to go over the center line? Like that's like head-on collision." She was like, "Well, can you just redo it and make it less sensitive?" I said, "No, I
Nope.
can't. I calibrated two specifics, and I know for a fact that it works." When it gets within, I think Honda's, correct me if I'm wrong, Joel, is within 30% of the line, like as far as you're coming over to it. And then you can go, what is it? Like, can't remember the exact wordage of it. No, that's Toyota's. Toyota's is within 3 or 4 inches of the line before it starts to warn you or something like that.
Yeah,
There's some
it's proximity of like it recognizes that you're not over the line, you're getting close to
close
the
to the
line.
line. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So with that, all this being talked about and educating customers, now you have to educate the customers that are your customers and the manufacturer of the tools customers. How far off are we before we're having to perform alignments and also all the sensors when we do a windshield?
I think what I'm hearing more and more, and it's conversational, but I think it bears noting that an alignment check should be almost required on just about every car that's got ADAS now, because so many vehicle manufacturers are the ADAS components are based on obviously facing straight, right, facing down the center of the road, but that's based on true center line or no deviation with thrust angle as far as position of like the way the car drives versus the position of the actual radars themselves, if that makes any sense. So I think that's the next, and I see a lot more shops doing this now or incorporating it, and they're getting paid for doing an alignment check. Maybe it's not the same like an alignment of like a 99.95 or whatever they might charge, but just getting it up on their alignment rack or having somebody that's got an aligner at least verify that the vehicle's in alignment, that the wheels are pointing straight, center line is true. If you cut the car right down the middle, that it's it's straight and true, if that makes any sense. So that when they start to look at vertical and horizontal alignment angles on radars, that even though it may be pointing straight, if the thrust angle is off by a degree or two, or vice versa, I think it just gives them another layer of understanding and verifying safety first ahead of the game. And I think that's going to be sort of the overarching theme going forward, is like, do an alignment check. Doesn't matter what you're doing. Just do the alignment check to ensure that you've got sort of that true north headline, if you will. I think it, and again, there are a lot of shops, they're doing that now, right? They're doing those pre-alignment checks. There are shops in between that do some, not necessarily all of them. And then there's shops, Damon, you were talking about if you just do pre-scans. There's still a lot of shops that aren't even doing just pre-scans. And
Yeah.
that's the frustrating piece, is there's such a huge wide swath of like this gap of like what some shops are doing, following textbook rules and procedures and operations, where others are way off the base and not even necessarily scanning every car that comes into their shop.
So you're walking into a shop and they got string and a couple boards tied to the front tires. What are you doing? Oh, we're doing an alignment check.
Right, exactly.
I think
Yeah.
I don't. It's been a minute, but I know like Nissan required an alignment.
Dodge wants you to check
Sebring,
it. Yeah,
yeah,
Dodge wants
Honda
you to check it.
Honda wants you to check it,
Yeah.
and they specifically say perform prior to doing any of the ADAS functions.
Yep.
And I think with the alignments, the shops that have an alignment rack in shop, it's dumb that they don't. Like, why wouldn't you? You have the tools for it. It's the shops that are 4 or 5 miles away and don't want to have to take the vehicle down. I think when at the bottom, the bottom line for the body shops is production time.
For
Oh,
sure.
we got to get this car out, because every day over their projected date, they can get dinged for it, because the insurance companies are looking at that like, oh, why'd you have that car an extra 4 days? well, we screwed up or whatever, or we couldn't get the sublet company to come do the calibrations for us or whatever it may be. So, they have points that they have to hit too, but they're relying on other people to come in, and do these other services. But at the end of the day, like you talked about, can you lay your head on the pillow knowing that you didn't do the job right?
How does this affect the mobile version? Because I know like there's a big company that we all know about that's talking about rolling out in the next couple of years this whole mobile stand setup thing that rolls out the back of the van, and then you have like the one that attaches to the windshield currently. You can't do an alignment check in the field. I mean, you guess you could, but how difficult would that be? Because it's like you can do it on a pitch because we put it at the same plane, and like, how's that going to affect the industry? Is it going to drive more brick and mortar shops? I mean, it seems like it's going to have to, right?
I think that's the case, is that if you're not invested in an aligner at this particular point, I think it makes sense to do it because it'll pay for itself. If you've got, obviously there are shops that they don't have the space to do it. So it's finding a viable resource that you can take cars to and from a location that can do the alignment, or maybe it's adding on to your shop because it's an investment certainly, but being cognizant and aware of it, that majority of vehicles are equipped with ADAS functionality that face out front of the vehicle, having that true center line or at least checking it is going to be imperative, but then being able to get paid for it on top of it, again, talking about like driving a little bit of revenue. I think for the mobile folks, yeah, there's, I know of different manufacturers that produce ADAS equipment that within the shop you can do an alignment check with their equipment, but getting that equipment into a van is nearly impossible. It's not conducive, right? It's probably not going to happen. So, and again, it goes back to, I think, like, if you don't have an alignment machine in your shop, you don't have the ability to put one in because of production space is a concern. You're concerned about cycle times. You're concerned about getting dinged from your KPI metrics with insurance companies, and you don't want to necessarily get punished or pulled off of an insurance DRP necessarily. That it's finding that verifiable or a bona fide partnership with a sublet company that maybe is your sublet for doing alignments and mechanical work, and or they can do calibrations as well. So those types of folks, those types of companies and businesses, from my experience, are popping up more and more, where they've got a dedicated space in their shop to do alignments, to do ADAS calibrations, static ADAS calibrations. And again, I think it's the same thing with documentation and resource and information, knowing when calibrations are required. You've got that at your fingertips now. There's also plenty of companies that are out there that can do sort of these sublet services for independent shops if they're not in a position where they can do them themselves.
So with a sublet service, are you recommending them to be trailered to the facility or trailered back? Because, road conditions, your trailer, you're driving back, you hit a pothole, don't realize you just spent all that money to knock it back out of a line, and then you kind of, I don't know though. That's a weird one. I'm sorry to ask that question. It's just what hit my brain.
It's a great question. Again, I think it's a topic that comes up routinely, of the calling in a mobile service to do the calibration on site at our shop, or calling in a sublet to pick the vehicle up, take it back to a dedicated brick and mortar environment that's conducive to doing ADAS calibrations with level floor and lighting and everything. And I mean, I came from the mobile side, where I was at previous to REVV. We did 2,000-3,000 calibrations a month. We had close to 1,000 shops that we worked with, and a majority of the calibrations that we did were on site at the shop. So we had a van, we took our equipment with, we got to the shop, we set up in a spot that we could do the calibration. And was it perfect every single time? No. If we couldn't do the calibration because conditions weren't conducive to doing it, we just told the shop, say, look, we can't do this. The floor's not level enough, the lighting's not proper, we've got too much reflection from toolboxes or other cars. We don't have a way to get this back to one of our brick and mortar facilities because we got one in Madison, Wisconsin, and you're in Omaha, Nebraska. It's just not going to happen, right? So we're going to have to take a pass, and you're probably going to have to send this to the dealership. But again, our philosophy was we want to give the shop plenty of heads up to say, hey, we're doing a surround view on a F-150, which takes up, as you guys know, the mats take up a lot of space. You're going to need a lot of room to do that. Or a Subaru EyeSight needs a lot of room in front of the vehicle. Again, speaking from my experience, was setting the shop up for a positive experience ahead of time versus getting to the shop realizing that we're doing a surround view on an F-150 and we're going to need a lot of space.
Or you're going to need a road that's real long so you can drive 5 miles an hour.
Right. Or we used to work with shops in downtown Chicago and doing a dynamic calibration. You would need a lot of runway. You need to get out into suburbia and do it, or clear roads. Can't have any snow on the ground. Can't have anything that's going to be reflective of
lines in the road.
Exactly. So it's like, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Shop Owner, we can come pick up the vehicle. We can do the dynamic calibration, but it's maybe going to take us a little bit longer than normal because we've got to navigate through traffic. We've got to get to an area where we can follow what the instructions are. But again, it's like anything else. Setting those proper expectations ahead of time can be all the difference, so that you're not having to struggle with making decisions about not doing anything at all because it's been such a poor experience at the front end of it. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. It makes a lot of sense. I think that the way that we're trying to navigate evolution of an industry that has kind of came out of like the need from insurance companies wanting safer vehicles, wanting to pay less claims out, which it seemed to be helping. Less claims are being filed, but yet they're still they're fighting. The pricing of it. They're fighting. So it's like a technology you wanted that was kind of thrown on all of us, body shops, auto glass, mechanics. We're trying to navigate it and figure out the best way, and it's created its own industry in itself, this ADAS, but we're kind of like trying to navigate through this evolution of where's it going to end. I don't know that it will. It's going to always be changing, and it keeps it exciting, but in the same sense, it's like the industry that wanted it is now kind of fighting it.
It is interesting. Go ahead, Damon.
I was just going to say, I think that there's so many variables with the costs. The costs in the auto glass industry, right? Like it's not a $250 $1549 anymore. It's a $1,250 windshield, and that doesn't include calibration or whatever. And then it's in the body shop side, it's all these ADAS calibrations and the pre and post scan, and now it needs an alignment. And hey, that was just a little dent, but it got structure, so now you're gonna have a $2,500 calibration bill, and you got to make sure that Honda has a full tank of gas, and you got to make sure that Honda's aligned. So at what point do those costs and God help us get transferred to us, right? Like we think we're paying a lot of money for insurance now. What should it really be? How much of that are they taking in the shorts? And we're fortunate that we're not going to get, so like all those different variables, we probably shouldn't be complaining, because in the reality, our insurance costs should probably be 2, 3, 4, 10 times what they are to cover all these costs. And then you got half of California burning down, right? So it's like that all comes into play when these insurance companies have to look at the overall what they're charging us.
They look at, for every dollar they spend in claims, what does it cost them to manage that claim? And I used to work on the insurance side, and the name of that number, or whatever they looked at to evaluate that, it escapes me at the moment, but it's like cost ratio or claims ratio, I think maybe it is called. And it's, going back a few years, for every dollar that insurance companies spent on claims, it was costing them like $1.25 or something like that. Don't quote me on the exact amount. So it was actually costing them more money. We see like all of the articles and social posts about X amount company, generated X amount in revenue and profit and blah, blah, blah. And yeah, I mean, they've got different ways of making money through investments and different ways of like writing policies that they write other than just auto or home or, things like that. But they're now they're seeing where that dollar per claim is only maybe like 91 or 92 cents. So they're actually, it's costing them less, which is good, because that was the idea, right? Is, well, if we work with the vehicle manufacturers, we encourage them to develop safer vehicles, should be less accidents, less claims. The problem is that the cost of the claims has now increased incrementally to match essentially where it was at before. But we are seeing, a slowdown in volume. We're not seeing as many cars in accidents. When they are in an accident, it's obviously the cost has increased because of pre and post scans, calibrations, all the things that go into it. So I think it really has kind of balanced itself out. And I saw a stat even this morning that said, the cost of auto policies over the last, I think it was like 10 or 12 years, has increased by like 84%, so it's, I think as consumers, we've seen an increase in like what it costs to insure our vehicles. But in at the same time too, I don't think the experience has increased in terms of like our relationship with our insurance companies, or certainly with the repairs working on our cars, because of negligence or naivety to safety, or we're getting back in our car and 5 or 6 key cycles and my dash lights up like a Christmas tree. It's like, well, what am I paying for here? What am I really paying for here? So I've even seen where people are starting to cancel their auto insurance, which is really, really dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a state law. I know in my state, I'm not sure about every state, but in my state law to have it. And if you cancel it, they're asking you, hey, do you have, like, where are you going? Are you going somewhere different? Basically they want to try to get your business back. But in the same sense, it's like, the worst thing in the world is to get hit by an uninsured motorist, man. Jeez.
Having to go through, having to deal with that, or somebody who's underinsured and go through subrogation. Yep. I mean, yeah, that's the question they ask, is like, well, we've paid $50,000 for this new vehicle. We know it's got lots of safety systems to it. It seems like it works. We turn some of it off, or we desensitize it a little bit because we don't like it to be so active or engaged. We got hit by somebody else who maybe had their car fixed at a shop that didn't have something recalibrated, and now it's like we've got to pay the penalty on it because of just driving our vehicle, which is really unfortunate.
You said something there, Joel, made me just think of something. Like my wife has a 2020 Equinox, and I can turn off the forward collision, and I can turn off the lane departure. Like, in your opinion, do you think that'll ever go away? Do you think that at some point they won't? It's just there, like you can't turn it off, you can't do anything because the companies or the insurance companies are going to get in bed with the manufacturers, or the manufacturer is going to be like, hey, this needs to stay on at all times because it's reducing, like this article talks about, reducing the collision rate. Do you think that they'll ever make it to where it's just there and you can't turn it off?
In my opinion, I don't think they will. I think they'll give consumers the choice. I think they just need to do a better job of educating the consumers at the time of purchase.
Yeah.
You can turn it off, but this is why you should leave it on.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a really good question. I've got a lot of thoughts.
Yeah, like back in the day, I remember watching a quick flashback to when they outlawed drinking and driving, and when they made seatbelts a law, and people, how they were complaining and how like this will never go, and the whole organization's going to fall, and they're taking away our freedoms, and then so it's kind of like, in my opinion, it's kind of like in that same boat. Is like, if you can't turn it off and you don't like the feature, they're taking away your your freedoms and all this stuff. So
the other avenue I've seen, and maybe you guys have heard of this too, is subscriptions.
Yep.
For certain functionality in your car. I think
kind of like a Tesla.
Mercedes.
You can get the Tesla.
Yeah,
you can get the Tesla. You can get the autonomous, the driving, and you got to pay an extra $10,000 or whatever to get it.
Yeah, or like a monthly subscription. I know. I think it was BMW, and you could.
Yeah, it was BMW. Right. That was it.
Yeah.
Yep.
You could get
subscribe to heated seats.
Heated
your vehicle.
seats.
Your vehicle comes equipped with all this stuff, Damon. Not mean to cut you off, Joel, but it comes equipped with all this stuff. But yet you have to pay subscriptions to turn on. And if your subscription runs out, well, guess what? Your ass is cold now because you ain't got your heated seats no more.
That's the bait and hook.
Yeah,
the car's a great. The car's a great price, but for an extra $20,000, you can get these features that your car's already equipped with.
Yeah, yeah. or Ford, Ford will, if you've got a Ford truck or whatever SUV that's equipped with surround view camera, so it's got, you can see 360 around the entire vehicle. They'll give it to you for free for like the first 2 years, but after 2 years, it's $25 a month. I don't quote me on the number, but it's a subscription, right? It's like you can opt in at that point, and imagine you wake up one day where it's on, and then tomorrow the subscription turns off, and you're
what?
And you're ignoring all the notifications and emails that Ford's probably sending you or the dealership to are you sure you don't want to activate this?
But if you think about that, 25 times how many of that vehicle are on the road, and what's the percentage of people that I love that. I'm going to pay, what's $25 times how many? That's just continued revenue. That's just guaranteed money when the times are slow, that they know they're going to be getting how many tens or hundreds of $1,000s from subscriptions to the surround view.
Well, I think what's interesting is Ford, their projections were a higher opt-in rate on that functionality after that period wore off. The actual opt-in was much lower than what they anticipated. People actually subscribing to, or you've had this for 2 years. They don't necessarily see the benefit of keeping it on at whatever the price point was, $20-25 a month. So the opt-in was actually a lot lower, but they still have people opt in. But you're right, it's a revenue driver for them. It's sort of that we can give it to you for a period of time. After that, hopefully they're thinking that after 2 or 3 years you're going to bring this car back and say, well, I want the next version.
Yeah.
As I really think what they're after at that particular point is you're just recycling into a new vehicle at that point, because whatever was working before isn't working now, and you don't want to pay an extra whatever it is to have it working above and beyond, because we're already subscription to the eyeballs anyway with TV and music and everything else that we've got.
Spotify.
Exactly. One more thing that I've got to put on my credit card every month for a subscription. So
at the end of the day, sorry, James. At the end of the day, there's motive behind everything, right? Like, they say, well, if we do this, if we do that, what's going to be the end result?
Nothing's for free, that's for sure.
Well,
we're coming up on 52 minutes right now, so we like to keep these right about the 55 minutes to an hour. Thank you, Joel, for coming on. As soon as we hit stop record, you got to wait for it to upload, so it shouldn't take too long after that. Thanks to our listeners. Do you guys have anything you want to say before we end off?
Go ahead, Joel.
No,
if you want to let everybody know about REVV ADAS, how they can find it.
Yeah, no, that's great. I really appreciate you guys having me on this morning. This has been a blast. Time goes really fast, so I could talk about this stuff all day long. But
rabbit holes.
Go to REVVADAS.com. It's REVVADAS.com. You can read more about what we do, the services we offer, how to schedule a demo with our team. You can find me really anywhere on social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, the community. I'm always available to answer any questions, industry related or otherwise, not necessarily exclusively about REV, but we do offer all of our new customers like a free month to try it out, see what they think, sort of a no risk, see how it works. We can integrate with the different estimating platforms on the collision side through CCC, Mitchell, and Autotex, and make it a really seamless process. And I really appreciate you guys having me on this morning.
And I just want to add to that, we were trying your 30-day thing, and I will be an advocate of it, that the support we got was great communication. Everybody was very knowledgeable, and I think that if you have any doubt about what REV does for you, you should do that 30-day trial, because it's well worth it. It's very much an eye-opener.
Appreciate it.
Sounds good. Yes, thanks, guys.
All right, thanks, Joel.
Thank you, everybody.